welcome and thank you for listening to us. And I'm going to emphasize the listening to us, because today you are going to be learning and growing your wisdom around the subject of listening. Before I give a little bit more information about that, I'm just going to explain what BIP Chat is. So as I said, the acronym BIP for BIP is Business is Personal. It is a philosophy that Thomas and I have believed in all the way through our business careers. The importance of allowing people into your life and allowing yourself into other people's lives. There is no greater gift than building personal relationships with people in business and in our domestic and home lives. And Thomas and I started BIP 100 in October 2020. No coincidence there. We were a little bit into the COVID period, a lot of people feeling they needed to connect more deeply with people in business. And whilst a lot of us network and we use great tools to do that, we've got a strong belief in the power of community. Very different experience. Community is about love and belonging. And when you bring business people into a loving and belonging environment, it's incredible the magic that takes place. And we are very careful about who we bring into our community, because some people don't have community values or it's not the right time for them. Very proud that Christopher Sigmund, who we're going to be talking to today, joined our incredible community. Christopher's based in South Sweden, and he is a philosopher, and he works with leaders and individuals to help them to build powerful teams. And I'm going to ask you, Christopher, in a minute to explain that a little bit more. I know that it's very much around really having the courage to look inside ourselves and know ourselves as well. Now, I said that I'll just give a little top of the show explanation of this. Listening is really quite a dying art, I think. I think broadcast has taken over us online, and it has also, to a certain extent, taken over us in our other parts of our lives. People often listen in order to wait for their turn to be heard. And some time ago, a couple of weeks ago, Christopher ran something very powerful within our community, a listening circle. And we had quite a profound experience here. And Thomas has always talked about listening as a service rather than software as a service, LAS, not SaaS. And so we are really thrilled to bring the skills and the wisdom of Christopher into our community and to you today. So Christopher, help me pad out a little bit more so people here know about you, and then obviously introduce our two amazing guests that you brought forward, Effie and Aliaksei.
Thank you very much, Penny, and thank you so much for that lovely welcome. I'm really happy to be here. It's an honor to be part of this BIP chat. And I, as a philosopher, it's a term that I use to mean many different things. Really, it's the way I work is holistic. So, including both the intellect and the emotions and the social aspect, the physical aspect, and the big picture. And so I'm both a personal philosopher and a business philosopher. And so I work with individuals and with groups, with teams or teams of leaders, and in different ways. And it can be around leadership, it can be around relations, it can be around communication, or around structures, understanding structures, or again, seeing the big picture. Yeah, and this is something that has come about from a very long experience in different fields. Like I have experience from railway engineering, I have experience from law, I have experience from music and theater, and all these things have now come together in what I do, both literally and figuratively. And so I have invited two people here. Aliaksei, I'm very happy that you've joined. Aliaksei is a client that I work with. He's at Lund University, is a leader there, and we've worked both individually and with a group of leaders, leadership team. And so in different ways, both listening and bringing in music and bringing in different aspects of this holistic approach to how I work. So I'm very happy to have Aliaksei here. Thank you. And Effie is my BIP friend. I'm very happy that we met, Effie, some months ago when I joined BIP, and we had some really good conversations. I think for the first time we met, I already felt like, okay, this would be an interesting person to talk more to. And Effie was part of the listening circle that you mentioned before, Effie. So I'm really happy that you wanted to join, Effie. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
I went two very influential people you've brought along here, and so thank you, Christopher. Incredible for Thomas and I to witness this, actually. And it's quite interesting, actually, as a test of my interview experiences here and my wisdom in interviewing, because how much that I need to focus on listening in order to create the flow here, rather than thinking of my next question. And that's often one of the challenges, isn't it, about listening? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. I think that a lot of the time we listen in order to, like, oh, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? And then you start listening to what's in your head instead of paying attention to what's outside. But then if you don't do that, if you just focus outside, you must like, oh, what am I going to say when it's my turn? I think a lot of it is about trusting that when it is my time to speak, I will know what to say. So for now, I leave that and be present with what's happening.
Yeah, wow, that's beautiful. That's just got me off the hook here.
That's good.
Fantastic. I love that. So let me give the listener here, because we want to keep your attention, and we all really hugely respect that you are giving us this time to listen in here. So thank you. I want to give you an idea of the sort of things we're going to cover. We're going to talk about the difference between individual listening and one-to-one listening. Also, the power of listening inwards, which is quite an interesting subject, I think. Different types of listening, are we listening while we're standing, walking, sitting, and the types also, whether you're listening to understand, to reply, or just to be present, as Christopher just said. So I think this is going to be a very powerful tutorial in that. So can I go to Effie here? I think I'd like to understand a little bit from Effie about, I know this did have a profound impact on you, being in a listening circle. And I wondered, as somebody who's experienced that, whether you could just give an idea of what that was like and why it was quite profound. We witnessed, actually, how profound it was for you. I wonder if you could share a little bit about that.
Yes, with great pleasure. And as you already mentioned, it was profound in many ways. First of all, I must share that I'm immersed in distraction, being a fintech tech influencer, which means that I'm not living a life that is by its nature prone to listening, whether it's myself or whatever. It's really immersed in distraction. So that's one point. And on the other side, it's been quite a while now that I've been asking myself the question, how can I combine business with spirituality? And to me, the experience that Christopher offered really was an example of how it can be done. So to put it in context, it was a listening circle on Zoom. It was 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, which for me means right in the heart of, a business day. Wasn't at 6 o'clock in the morning where I wake up and I'm calm. And very quickly, I managed to sort of shift from that distractive world that I live in and follow the guidance that Christopher offered to us. And it was really profound because it was also digital. It was online. It was on Zoom. It wasn't in person. I didn't change my physicality. I was sitting at my chair, my laptop and everything. So it was extremely powerful for me how quickly he managed to shift me into this world of listening. And I'm sure I'll have the opportunity to share a little bit about the quality of listening, because already you mentioned that there's different types of listening. So Was I listening to myself? I think I was also listening to others in the circle. So it was quite profound and unique.
Gosh, that's, I think you're so right, the way you highlighted that our lives, you know, we do get so distracted, and almost the point where actually being able to concentrate on one thing becomes really hard as well, to focus on something. A, when you know there is so much else that you could be doing, and B, when your mind is already working at hyperspeed through the day with tasks. And it was really incredible the way Christopher did bring us all down to I suppose that if you could have done a sound wave, it would have been very calming. We all probably came in with a very strong wave and then calmed that wave down. And I want to come back to you, Christopher, about these listening circles. And you've just been listening to Effie, and I'm going to spell her surname. And Effie, you probably have to pronounce it. It's a beautiful name.
Pylarinou.
Pylarinou. So
Yes,
if you want to look up while you're listening here.
It's very hard.
Yeah, don't go off. If you're watching this live on LinkedIn, don't go off this tab, because you'll stop hearing us. But if you write this down so you can look at Effie, she is a global influencer in the fintech market, fascinating lady. So Effie is EFI and then Pylarinou.
And how do you pronounce that, Penny?
Pylarinou. That good? Thanks for that. That was Thomas putting me on the spot there. But I will be repeating the names at the end for you to be able to look them up. And Aliaksei, fascinating work that you do. I know that you are a global authority on this, on the subject of traffic calming, traffic safety, accident prevention. And you are a client of Christopher. I wonder if you could give some context about that before we move on to really digging into this whole subject of listening.
Yeah, it's actually quite interesting story how we started to work together with Christopher, because I was quite new in my role of a leader, a head of academic department. And then I have also some people working with me who are in charge of smaller research groups. And I really felt like all of us, we were kind of like green in that role, kind of uncomfortable with leaving, like, you know, the comfort of like, that's my little piece of research I'm doing and I'm responsible, that's it, don't touch me. And then suddenly you are responsible for like 40, 50 people working at you, and you realize, okay, they're coming and crying in your office, and like the babies are being born, like the money are not coming that you expect to come. So all those like practical, psychological, human things that are happening, and suddenly it started to take like half of my working time to deal with that. So I really wanted to, to have someone to talk to actually. Like I couldn't formulate the question at that moment, but what I really needed was someone to talk to, someone who would listen to me. And once we started our sessions with Christopher, like, I mean, he didn't advertise it, like, I will come and listen for you for 1 hour and you will pay me. I don't think it sells like if you know nothing about it. But what I realized after a couple of occasions, that's exactly what was happening. Like he was a consultant, he was supposed to give advice, but basically I was talking all of the time. And then at the end, wow, I have a solution. I do have the answers. So some kind of magic was happening while I was putting my like feelings, my problems, some underconscious whatever disturbances, I was putting them in words, and they landed well. Like there were no criticisms, there were no some kind of aggression coming back. It was just like, okay, take it out, and once you see it in front of you, well, it's become very obvious what to do next.
How amazing. What an incredible leadership skill to be given, actually, to do that. And do you apply this a lot now in your work?
Yeah, so now we actually running together with Christopher, we're running a leadership development program for my, like, how do I call them, sub leaders, group leaders who work with me. And now, like being on the other side, I really kind of realize how it works, what is the process, what are the necessary components, like how do you combine all those magic ingredients, and finally, poof, something happens.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And you know,
And
huge respect for you as well on embracing this in your leadership. Sorry, Thomas.
Aliaksei, I was going to say, you said you were spending half of your time listening to your sub-leaders, your group leaders, because they had so many issues, domestic issues, personal issues to talk through with you. Now that you've done this leadership listening or listening leadership development, however you label it, has it saved you any time? Have you got a deeper relationship with your sub leaders? What's kind of changed as a result of doing it?
I can clearly see the difference in my reactions, because in the beginning I was really focused on finding quick solution. Like, yeah, whatever. Like, I have problems with my husband. I cannot work. I cannot concentrate on my work. Okay, and then I'm coming giving my advice.
What, like get a new husband?
That's very stupid strategy, I would say. So instead, what I'm doing now, I'm listening and I'm saying, okay, if you want to talk more, I'm available here. But usually people, once they've emptied all that, they feel relieved. They feel kind of, they start to see new horizons. So actually, it's not that they're coming for answers. They're coming for someone who would acknowledge, understand, accept that they do have a problem, and just by talking through them, they do find solutions themselves.
Yeah, that is stunning. Something, Christopher, that comes up to me listening to Aliaksei there is, I suppose looking back into my childhood, my parents were not, and I think my age, a lot of parents were like this. They didn't listen. They didn't ask questions. They weren't really interested in my life. And it had a really profound impact, I think, on my self-worth, which I didn't discover till I was later in life. When you deeply listen to someone and make them feel significant by the fact you're listening, it really does have quite a profound impact on that person, doesn't it?
Yeah, I believe it does. So what is the question, Penny?
Well, it wasn't really a question. It was just, you know, that I suppose this subject of listening has such breadth of impact on people and on organizations. But I suppose I was wondering more about, you know, when Aliaksei was speaking there, I thought, you know, he's become a leader, or it was always probably you, but you've been given some tools to do it, that enables his team to feel significant enough, where they're not just there to perform tasks, they're there as a person, and that they're significant to Aliaksei, that they are worth giving that attention to. And do you feel that listening, you know, is that a big part of why we should listen to people?
I think my general attitude around this is that when it comes to these matters of the inner world, then everyone really has their answers within them. And if we look at the external world, of course, solutions can be in many different places. But when it comes to, you know, how should I manage myself, then everyone really is the master, but they might not be in contact with that yet. So I think listening, the way I approach it is that I'm not there to solve the problem for someone else. I'm there to hold up a mirror to, you know, then the other person will see themselves, or to just hold that space, and then the solutions will present themselves, much as Aliaksei was describing. So I think that, but then the other side of it is that it's so very different where the conversation goes. Like with one person, you know, it might lead into one thing, and with another, it might lead into something completely different. Like, you know, sometimes it can be relations, or sometimes it can be just like health, or it could be whatever is needs to come to the fore. And again, I think that by allowing and being accepting and working with radical acceptance around what is, whatever is most needed to present itself will present itself. So the way that I hold space is really about being present and allowing it to guide.
Yeah.
If I
So
can
can
just
I ask-
confirm what Christopher is saying, my experience is also that it doesn't really matter what was the initial subject of the conversation. But if you really establish that like deep listening, people will come to talking to the real problem. Like there is someone deep inside, something deep inside bothering, and you can start talking about that, but they will come to the real problem quite quickly.
Yeah, I like that. I want to pick up on that in a minute, actually. Thomas, I know you were going to say something.
Yeah, Christopher, you talk about holding the space and holding up the mirror. Does the breakthrough happen for the person asking the question? Is the breakthrough happening for them because they're talking it through and they talk out their own solution through the talking? Or does the breakthrough happen because they're being listened to? And as Penny says, they're having the recognition or significance of being heard, and the being heard releases the solution for them.
What do you think?
Oh, he's annoying, isn't he?
Can I jump in? I mean, when I've been listening to Aliaksei, and it seems to me that there's two sort of magic things that have happened here. It's not only that Christopher was listening to Aliaksei, but now it seems that Aliaksei has learned to listen to everybody around him in a way, you know, in a magic way. It's as if he's, you know, like the neurons have mirrored what Christopher is doing, and Aliaksei can do it in his environment, in context. Is that?
Yeah, I get what you're
That
saying.
resonate, Aliaksei, or is it my?
That's
Yeah,
good,
well,
Effie. That's good.
yeah. I would agree. I don't think it was very conscious, but I started to kind of copy and doing what Christopher is doing, and just realizing that it works, and then you continue.
The challenge, I think, I remember having this conversation. I was out socially, and I suddenly took responsibility on this table of, I think we're about 8 of mums, for keeping the vibration of the event going, you know, keeping everybody chatting, and being very cautious when there was a quiet moment, and filling it, thinking. And then this lady next to me said to me, I find these events really hard. And I said, why? And they said, because it takes time for me to say something, but there's never any silence for me to speak. And this was about 20 years ago. And it was a really big moment for my own self-development when she said that, when I realized that some of us do take on a responsibility to make a noise because they want that all the time. You know, they think that's what makes something fun for everybody. Is that something you've noticed in people, Christopher, that people fear silence almost?
I mean, certainly it's prevalent in many places. It makes me think of music, actually, because I'm a musician and I play music, and I find that the more that I play, the less I play, actually. And the more experienced I am with music, the more I appreciate the silence as well. It's not that I don't think that the silence is the music, but I think that the silence is a very important part of it. And it's like so many things we see in nature also. Like, for example, breathing. We breathe in and we breathe out. And if you try to just breathe in all the time, it just doesn't make sense. It's not like that it adds any value. It just makes it impossible to you know, it's like to start choking.
Yeah. So let's move on to this listening circle then, because if I give a little bit of my experience of it, and then I want to pass to Effie. Well, actually, and I also want Christopher to explain it as well, but I'll just give you, the listener, an idea of what it felt like. So there was about 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes where Christopher sort of explained a bit about himself and his life and introduced himself. And then he said to us all, I think there was about 12 of us on the Zoom, that we would go silent now. And it was like, you could see everybody's eyes sort of goggling, thinking, what does that mean? And there was this quite uncomfortable period of we're all just staring at each other at the screen and no sound. And then Christopher said, if there's a word comes up, say a word if you want it. And bit by bit, somebody would maybe say a word. And it was some sort of collective experience of a consciousness was happening in the room, where people were explaining an energy they could feel or something. I don't know whether that's a good explanation, but that's how it happened to me. And I don't know, how long did you put us into silence for, Christopher? How long were we in silence for?
Well, maybe 25 minutes.
Yeah. Can you imagine, if you imagine that as a listener, it was very uncomfortable. Then it became very beautiful. Effie, I wonder if you'd like to explain what it was going on for you during that listening circle.
Yeah, I would say that initially with the silence, there was this discomfort of, how am I supposed to feel, and what is the experience that I should, look up to or aim or something like that, which I know intellectually is stupid, but that was what was going on. And then very quickly I found myself being able, like in a dream, to have all sorts of visuals or I'm going to say images floating in my consciousness, and some of them I felt that I wanted to voice them, and those were the words. I can't explain it. I don't know, how I made the selection, and I didn't also feel the pressure that I typically feel, because Christopher said that if you want to say a word, so I feel the pressure that I should say a word. No, it wasn't like that. So I can't explain it, but it was like that. And I also felt very connected with the words that others were sharing. So in that sense, there was a collective experience there.
I felt that very much as you've described, Effie. You've described it exactly how I felt it and experienced it as well. I'm trying to understand what Christopher did there.
I want to come on to that, Thomas. But just before we do ask, I know you're about to ask Christopher, and I know I didn't keep letting you talk there, but that's the wife, isn't it? I just didn't want to move on from what Effie said there. May I ask you, and you obviously have a right to say, I'll maybe talk about that later, but why were you so profoundly moved by it? What was it that, because there was some emotion that came out for you, wasn't there?
Yes, and it was also very different than meditating in a group, which I have done. Meditating in a group typically is a very private experience. I understand intellectually that it's facilitated by the energy of the group, but it's a private experience. Here, there was more. There was a collective experience. So while I was in my world with my these energies that were coming in the form of words, ideas, visuals, and so on, and I was trusting what was more important to me to voice it. At the same time, I was able to connect in a very safe way to what others were sharing and
Yeah.
kind of float with them.
It was very intimate, wasn't it?
Yes, it was intimate with the group, and yeah.
Yeah, no, that's.
I can't explain it, but yes, it was like that.
And has it left you with anything? Did the experience leave you with something?
It did. It left me with the experience that it is possible.
Yes, beautiful.
It is possible. So, you know, when I'm in a totally opposite state of mind or consciousness, right? It matters that I have experienced it.
Yeah.
Not that I've read about it or heard about it, but that I have experienced it, and it creates a sense of safety.
Yeah. As somebody, I suppose I was in a position of leadership in a way, like Aliaksei has experienced his time with Christopher. So I felt I had that sense of responsibility for the event as someone. And when I was observing it and taking part, I just thought there is so much respect and love in the room for everybody to stay in that listening environment and not feel embarrassed and want to leave or need to speak or turn their video off. You know, it was such an intimate experience for people to share that I feel there was a great bonding. I don't think those of us that took part in it will ever forget that experience of closeness that we all experienced. So Thomas, I think what you were going to ask Christopher, please do fire away now, because I think we need to understand more about that.
It's difficult to ask the question, Christopher, because I don't actually know what I want the answer to, but the experience of the listening, the silence, the listening, the meditation, as Effie says, the freeing of the thoughts, the visuals, the ideas, the calmness, the union, the collective warm feeling you have with others. How would you label the experience we're going through, other than we're in a listening circle? But there are outputs that come from being in a listening circle. So how would you label the experience? Why would people do it? Because it's terrific, but you have to know it's terrific in order to do it.
That's a good question. It's a very personal experience. So what you experience is very personal, but at the same time it's universal, because I find that the deeper we go, the more personal it gets, but the more universal it gets as well. Feeling safety in a group with others, I think that is an important part of it, because we all have this sense of belonging. We all have a limbic brain, which is all about connecting and being in community. So that is a very, very deep-rooted need in us as human beings. So that's one of them. Another is a deepening of presence in a collective setting. And why do you want to be present? I think that there are some things that have an intrinsic value. We do them because we do them. We don't do them in order to do something else. And for me, being present is one of those things. It's like, it makes sense. For me, dancing is another one. I don't dance in order to get fit or in order to whatever. I dance because I dance, because that's like, it feels meaningful. And I get this same kind of sensation or experience of being present. I think that is a universal thing, to really be present, to really feel accepted and safe and in connection with others. That's something that we all long for and need a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. It does. I'm trying to think, it's the manifestation of safety in a way, being in a listening circle, isn't it? It's a way to manifest that energy. Sorry, Thomas, you want to say something?
Well, I was going to say this is an assumption here or a guess, but Chris, are you saying that when you go into a listening circle, you effectively have the same experience of returning to the womb?
Those are your words, Thomas. Was that your experience?
Oh, he's a naughty devil, isn't he? Hey,
He is.
Not called a philosopher for nothing.
he's a
Right.
naughty
We've
devil.
only got, this has gone so fast. This has only gone 10 minutes left, and I hope we've still got a lot of your attention on this important subject. I want to go on to, it's probably going to be a little bit of a quick fire set of questions now, Christopher, which I'm not sure how you like those. But I think that it's very interesting that you said that there are different types of listening. So can I start off with, this act of listening in a one-to-one? What sort of thoughts would you give? Because people are having one-to-ones all the time. They connect on LinkedIn, they say, can we have a one-to-one? One-to-ones within bit 100. What do you feel about that? Because I'm going to say something else here, and then I really want to deeply listen, is when I had my one-to-one with you, I'm usually the listener, right? And I want to be the listener when I have a one-to-one. I want to learn and listen and hear. But with you, I became the talker, right? And I found that quite interesting in the one-to-one. And so how do you think people should run one-to-ones and ensure that listening takes part both ways in a way?
Well, I don't know about should and prescribing how others should do things, but what I could propose and invite to, and is hopefully inspire to, is to really take the time to listen. I mean, to have at least a certain amount of time, whether that be 5 minutes or 10 minutes, where it's like, okay, right now I will set aside my agenda. Right now I'm not going to think of what I want to say, but just like give a little bit of, give some attention freely and see what happens. Maybe as an experiment to see, because it might feel counterintuitive at first to not think of how I can use what I get in order to get the effect that I want, because so much of what we do is around that mode of thinking. But as an invitation, like, well, just try 5 minutes, just let go of all that and just like, okay, I'm just going to be here and listen and see what happens. Experiment with it.
So would the etiquette be that we're having a 45-minute one-to-one? I would really like to listen to you. For the first 15 minutes, I just want to hear from you, and then 15 minutes, and then the other way around, and then maybe 15 minutes more of a discussion from what each other. Would that be a very successful way to have a one-to-one, do you think?
I think that's a wonderful idea to invite to that. I haven't really thought of that. I mean, when I'm in a one-to-one, I listen a lot. That's what I do. But I mean, there is the potential to invite the other person to do it as well. I'm usually more for longer meetings. Like for me, half an hour or an hour is usually a little bit short to get to the level of listening where I like to be. So I like to have 2 or 3 hour long meetings. I realize that's not always possible for whatever reason, but in any case, it's a good idea, Penny, to try to invite to that. Let's listen to each other for a while.
Thomas, I mean, you're the master of one-to-ones. You sort of used to teach this all the time. What are your thoughts on that? You had your hand up there.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Christopher, is there a process going on here? Is there a listening process? Is there a structure, or is it entirely random? Because you might be on the verge of creating something like the Sigmund listening process or the Sigmund listening technique. And there might be a method here that you are uncovering or discovering. It could be 10,000 years old and you're rediscovering it. But I get a sense, because of the outcomes that Effie described, which I had as well and Penny had, that it's quite an uplifting experience if you get it right, if it's correctly facilitated by the Sigmund process or the Sigmund listening signal process. Am I barking up the wrong tree here? What question am I asking you?
I know, I was going to say, you know, Christopher likes clear questions.
Yeah, I think it's great, Thomas, because it doesn't have to be you asking a question. It's much like Aliaksei was saying before. I mean, while you are saying these things, you say good things, and maybe the process is around facilitating other people to say good things.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, that's good. And then in a group, so, you know, we run mastermind groups, and we have group Zooms. What are your thoughts on that? Because you said that's, you know, very much it's different, obviously, to a one-to-one. What are your thoughts on group listening?
Well, first of all, when more people are assembled, there is even less individual airtime, if you so will. I mean, if everyone tries to talk at the same time. We've done it at home, actually, at the dinner table. My son proposed, can't we all just talk at the same time? And everyone's talking at the same time, and he loved it. It's like, this chatter. So, I mean, you could do that as a contrast, but generally, if there is going to be an outcome in a group, then you need to step back even more. And I think that quite naturally, some people will, you know, step forward and they will take the space, and then they will talk, and they, you know, make a big thing out of things. And I don't have any, you know, that's okay. You know, some people are more extrovert and like all the attention, but there is something about everyone like being in this more objective or observing mode, listening mode. And it's because it transcends the individual, it transcends the ego, maybe it's difficult to transcend the ego, maybe it's not even possible, but at least it transcends some parts of it. It transcends this, like, I'm here, I'm going to do this. And there is a wisdom in the collective, like this, the collective awareness, the collective consciousness, which is very much there. And it happens because there are several people involved. So it requires several people, and the wisdom will speak through one person or another, but you can't really know who will be the one speaking it. So it's a lot about paying attention and just like, where is it coming from?
Yeah.
And when we come to a stage where it doesn't really matter who is saying the words, so then it's good. I find if I'm saying things that I find, oh, I've never said that before, that was interesting, then I'm probably in a good place, you know, and then it can come from someone else as well.
I know what you mean. You feel like you're channeling. Can't believe we've only got 2 minutes left. I have a feeling we might go slightly over. You said that there were types of listening, you know, to understand, to reply, to be present. And I'm almost wondering whether one is better than the other, or whether you are actually saying you apply them at different times. Can you just give me a little bit more context on that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look at the way that politicians seem to listen. They seem to listen in order to retort. To, you know, it's called a debate. They want to cut through the other's arguments. And I mean, I'm sure that has it fills certain needs, human needs. It can achieve certain results. I think one question is like, what is really the end game of listening in order to destroy your opponent? To me, it seems like a destructive way of using your listening in order to, you know, crush. And a lot of things in the world today are force-based, which is all about dominating through force, and listening can be sort of used as a tool to that as well. Whereas if it's about listening to understand, it's a more elevating or ascending or uplifting experience, generally speaking, as a metaphor. Whereas listening, just to be present and listening, it's a more how should I say, it's evening out. The energy is more
holistic,
opening. What did you say, Thomas?
Holistic.
Yeah, holistic or all-encompassing. Balancing is probably a good word. It's like it's a balancing energy.
And then listening in order to reply.
Yeah, listening in order to reply is kind of similar to listening to retort, but maybe more friendly though.
Yeah, I mean,
but the thing is that it doesn't have to be one or the other. I've been reflecting on that during this conversation, that it's actually possible to have several states of mind active at the same time. So, you know, being present in the listening for someone else, we didn't talk about that, but like listening for someone else, but also like, okay, and this makes me associate to this. Maybe we'll say that later, or maybe I won't, but not to get hung up on it, just like allowing these things to pass through.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's so relaxing listening to him. I'm dropping asleep with relaxation.
And then, well, you can go and have a sleep in a minute. And then I love the presence. I mean, it's really clear that you're very present here. And I think that is such a challenge for us all in this world, where we can calm ourselves just enough to not have an agenda, not to be looking for an outcome, just to be present. Yes, Effie.
And we can feel it all here. And again, I want to emphasize, we're on digital, we're on Zoom. Imagine, you know, that has a lot of power. We're not in the same room, and we can feel how Christopher his presence is completely different.
Does that come from a point of no desire to prove yourself to anybody? Just you're not competing for attention, you're not needing to prove yourself. It's, you know, very few of us get to that point in life where we're not acting like animals competing for the food out there, or, you know what I mean, competing for attention. It's all that sense of a need, I suppose, trying to satisfy a need, that being able to be present. Well, how does somebody get to that point?
I think the answer how to get there is through practice, and I think that you have a good point there, and I find that this is actually sometimes also a challenge for me, because a lot in this world is so much about wanting to get ahead and to compete and like and oh, where is your sales pitch, and oh, you know, how can you, what are the 5 advantages to listening, you know, how will it make me more money, etc. And for me, I mean, I'm coming from another direction. I'm coming from a space of being, and then descending into this world. But yeah, I think you're right. It could be around that. When I hold space for processes, and as much as possible all the time, it's not about competing so much. I mean, I might compete for fun, but not compete, not cutthroat competition, but like, because, you know, it's fun to do something, you see who is the best, but more like from a place of love, from a place of we're human.
Place of love. Beautiful words. Well, Thomas said in 2009, when he was interviewed about the shift that's happening in people as a result of the internet, he said we need to change our attitude to communicating, from being closed to open, from being selective to being random, and from being controlling to being supportive. And it was coined the term ORS instead of CSC. And I think that Thomas is a brilliant person in one-to-ones, because he is seeking to be open, to be supportive, and accepts that whatever the random conversation is, he's not needing an agenda. It's a hard place to get to, and it's driven me mad that he's had this belief for so long. But I think he's, you know, there's a lot here in what I hear about that. And thank you very much. I wish we could carry on. I'm sure some of the listeners do. Now listen, I would love you to listen. I've just used the word. As a listener, first of all, want to thank you very much for the attention you've given to this. It is a incredibly important subject, and it is definitely the kindest act to listen to others and to hone that skill as a leader in the way that Aliaksei has, is just phenomenal. So Christopher, I really respect and admire you hugely, and every time we speak I learn more and more. If you'd like to look up Christopher, he's Christopher Sigmond, S-I-G-M-O-N-D. He's on LinkedIn. Contact Thomas or I if you'd like us to connect you to him, or connect with him on LinkedIn. Effie Pylarinou. Oh gosh, was that good? I'm going to spell it again. Effie, E-F-I-P-Y-L-A-R-I-N-O-U. Look up Effie. She's a huge fintech influencer, global influencer in the fintech world. And this is a harder one. Get your pen and paper out as I spell this name. I don't know how to pronounce your surname. So it's Aliaksei Laureshyn. Was that good? So I'm going to spell Aliaksei to you. It's where were you from? Where did you say that your surname's
Belarusian.
from?
Yeah, it's Belarusian name.
Amazing. So if you're Belarusian, you'll know that name, but probably many
Where's
of you
Belarusia, babes?
Oh, shush. So I didn't hear that question. Aliaksei is A-L-I-A-K-S-E-I, and then the surname is L-A-U-R-E-S-H-Y-N. You might need to rewind a little bit to hear that again. And it's been incredible. What a diverse group here today. A philosopher, a fintech global influencer, and a traffic safety and accident prevention gentleman from the university in Sweden, University of Lund. Is it L-U-D-T?
Lund. Yeah.
Lund. L-U-N-D-T, I think. So it's been a fascinating talk. Thank you so much for your time, all of you, and thank you again for listening to us, everyone. And I'm sending you off with our love.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.